Well, welcome back. Friday, February 20th, 2026. I am Seth Leibsohn, and on Fridays we start the show off with either George Khalaf or Rabbi Alush. Rabbi Alush to get us into a Sabbath-oriented frame of mind, and George Khalaf, consultant, political consultant, and analyst extraordinaire, to kind of wrap up the week in politics, but also to tell you about his campaign, which is there's just not a lot of candidates I feel this way about. A lot of candidates work your mind and you think, oh, we'll do a good job. But this is a candidate that works my heart. It's a candidacy from the heart, and it's a campaign from the heart. And that's George Khalaf, who, in addition to being a political expert, is running for the Arizona House of Representatives in Legislative District 3. So you can go to his website, learn more about him, or help him out, georgekhalaf.com, Khalaf. He's just the kind of guy that won't be one of many in the legislature. He'll be one who you'll be proud of having in the legislature, and will make all the right kinds of news as he makes all the right kinds of moves. George, it's good to see you. It's been a while.
Always good to see you, Seth, and how can I complain with an amazing intro like that? And since we've
you did complain a little bit. You came in a little early saying, "Look, Seth, I need a few things from you." All right, you did the complaining off there. Right.
We didn't see each other last week. We needed to catch up, and you're looking all spick and span today. So. Yeah, it's good. It's Friday, though. Friday afternoon, I'm always a high energy level. I know some people may be like, it's the end of the week. No. For me, this is like this is a high energy level.
How are things going on the campaign trail?
It's going well.
What are you learning?
It's going well. I'm out and about. Yeah. I know people may feel like it's early, and to a degree it is. But you know what? I love talking to voters. I had a coffee in Carefree on Thursday. Honestly, I was worried if I'd get 2 to 3 people. There's 15 people that showed up.
Wonderful.
I was very blessed and thankful for that. A beautiful location in Carefree. I've gotten to explore so many parts of the district that, yes, I had been to, but not spent a lot of time in. I'm getting to spend more time in. Last night, I got to speak to our Republican Legislative Committee meeting for 5 minutes, and again, sort of reintroduce myself to some and just kind of give an update to others. But Seth, campaign's going well. I have no complaints. I mean, there's so much to talk about. There's so much policy to engage in. The legislature is in full swing. I got to shadow Senator Shauna Bullock earlier this week as well. I mean, man, now that I'm recounting all this, I can't believe it's only been in 1 week, and Monday was a holiday, right? We didn't technically, even though I was working, technically that was a holiday. So campaign's going well. I am on the precipice of having raised $100,000, which I'm very proud of. That's all dollars raised. I have not put in anything, and so I have been working really hard on that. I already have a number of meet and greets set up. And I want folks to know I'm accessible. I am trying to be everywhere at once to the extent that a human being can. And I'm grateful that Brianna, my wife, is willing to go to events with me and bring the kids, and is just willing to kind of enter into this journey together, because it is a crazy time, and yet we just have immense joy in it.
I love it. And I love the calm you bring to this. You know, there's a lot of different kinds of candidacies and different kinds of candidates and different kinds of elected representatives and legislators and the like. And you handle everything with very strong opinions, very heartfelt opinions, hard achieved but heartfelt opinions. By that I mean you've studied the point before you settle on it. But you do it with a calm. And I think people want calm. There's a lot of people who are kind of live wires, electric wires, and I just love the calm you bring to every speech you give and every meeting you're in. I really like that.
Thank you, Seth. If for those that may have known me when I was 16 to 19, I'm not sure that word would have been used to describe me. But obviously, people mature as they get older and as you go through life. But
most people, I think I'm going the other way. Most people.
As you were talking, I'm thinking about, look, in the world today, there's not calm, right? So you mentioned individuals that were live wires, but the whole world is not calm. So much we're on the precipice of. I mean, not a lot of people are talking about it, and I don't want to necessarily take us in another direction, but we're amassing the largest military presence that we've probably had in the region in a long time. right near Iran, and lots of chatter there. That's amidst all of the domestic things that are happening, the tariff news today from the Supreme Court. And yet, what do people then desire in those moments? Why do people then retreat to faith? We often talk about faith on the show. They retreat to it because of the calm and the centering. Well, if I, as a leader, bring chaos, all I'm doing is adding to it. And all I'm, look, people are afraid. So then what? You fan those flames and you bring chaos to it? No. Of course, we can talk about things that we should be afraid of, like in the sense of, I want to say, hey, to avoid these bad things, this is what we should do. Like, we can invoke those things, but our demeanor should bring comfort to those that we're talking to. And also, how else are we going to win those over that are not just political animals? They're not engaging on this 24/7. They're just normal, everyday Arizonans. If you talk to them intensely, or I would say scream or sound like everything else in the world, how are you going to stand out?
I talk a lot about what I think the left wants us in, which is in a state of constant agitation and anxiety. And I think between the media and the way the Democratic Party talks about America and the Republicans, there's this constant, what do I call it, a crisis industrial complex, not a military industrial, but a crisis industrial. They want us in constant crisis, constant agitation, almost a Marxist kind of permanent revolution. We can never be settled. And I think it leads to a sense of anxiety in the population, George, that by definition is an unhealthy state of mind. And I think that decisions, as most probably students of psychology would say, I'm not one of them, but I think I'm right in saying this, decisions based on fear are usually the worst kinds of decisions to make.
Yes. I mean, as same to you, I'm not a psychologist, but the little I understand is that when you're in that fight or flight reflex, right. Your body's made to make quick decisions to keep you alive, right. Not necessarily to make these super strategic decisions. Like, you don't want to be playing a game of chess when you're in fight or flight mode. Now, with that said, the progressives do desire and are all agitated. Yeah. When I was down at the Capitol, I was hearing floor speeches about it was an election integrity bill. It was an election bill. And
they made it sound like the invasion of Poland.
If you would have heard some of the commentary, invoking police beatings and things that were so out of left field, they were angry. Slamming of desks. This was not like a heated multi-hour debate, by the way. They're just like quick to anger. Education, an issue I care a lot about. The opponents of the Empowerment Scholarship Account and school choice, anytime I've seen them live or on camera in the media, angry Seth. Now, look, there are conservatives who get angry, but I think there's a difference, and hear me out on this. When I meet a conservative who's angry, like a grassroots activist, they're angry because there's a fear for what once was and what it will be, and that they feel something is taken from them. Yeah. Okay, so it's more fear-based.
Something's being lost,
right? It's more fear-based, and they're not really screaming and hollering. They're just, you could tell that they're very upset with whoever, whatever we're talking about. When you look at a progressive, I don't think they're afraid for something that once was lost, or they see a bunch of things and they have animus towards those, towards Christians, towards conservatives, towards white Christian conservatives, right? Like they're perfect nexus of things that they don't like, and then they cannot help themselves, even relative to Donald Trump. I heard a story that was wild the other day that someone responded to their colleague that they were having a good day, and that colleague looked at them and said, "In this environment, you can say that word," and walked off. I mean, my brain can't compute often when I try to understand and rationalize why are they so angry. I don't know if you face that same.
No, you made me think. You used the word progressive. I'm happy with that word too. I tend to use the word leftist more, and sometimes even Marxist. And the reason I throw the word Marxist in there is because of what you said. You're right. The progressives have a very different view of history. They don't care about it. Actually, it's the antithesis of what progress to them means. The great progressive Woodrow Wilson, so much so, wrote in many speeches and books that the respect, the awe, the reveration we have for things like the Declaration of Independence should be reinterpreted by every generation, that it had no fixity. Self-evident truths were only self-evident at that moment, which is the opposite of a self-evident truth, and that every generation, had the obligation to reinterpret what the Declaration of Independence means. So it is a constant agitation. And the reason I throw Marx in there is one of his famous lines was that the task of philosophy he set up until him was to understand understand and interpret the world, whereas now the task is to change it. And anyway, okay, that's a lot of philosophy. Let's get back to brass tacks and politics. You mentioned education savings accounts. They're in the news. You want to talk about those when we get right back?
Let's do it.
George Khalaf is my guest. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Seth Leibsohn Show, coming to you from the YRefi.com studios. George Khalaf is my guest, candidate for Arizona State Legislature, political consultant in his own right, georgekhalaf.com. His website, he's just having a laugh with me during the commercial break that, we were kind of having a very theoretically high-minded conversation invoking Marx and Wilson and the history of progressives, and we went out with the Pina Colada song.
Yeah.
George, it's all our territory.
I know.
As Lincoln said, there are no deviations here. Everything can be.
With you and David, music, I don't even try to, I don't talk about it anymore. The one time I did, I totally messed it up.
Well, it's fun. It was a Christmas song, wasn't it?
Yes.
Do you remember, you might be too young to remember the great radio music, I guess you would call him DJ, Casey Kasem.
Oh yeah, I do remember.
Kasem.
Yeah,
and there's we can't play it because it's filled with language the FCC doesn't allow. But yeah, he's complaining. It's one of these off mic moments or whatever you call it, unguarded moments, unplugged, like Bill O'Reilly. You've seen some of this with Bill O'Reilly, and he's talking about a poem, a beautiful poem about someone's dog dying that he wanted to read to the audience, and how he had to come in with this upbeat, crashy music. And anyway, he's yelling at his producer about it. It's funny for people that want to go on YouTube and hear it. But that's not us. It's all I can relate Pina Coladas to Karl Marx at some point.
All right,
we won't do it right now.
Next segment.
Okay. ESAs are in the news, for good and ill. Talk to me.
Yes, if folks will give me a couple of minutes of attention to walk through this, because it is so important that when there's a lie that is said, we have to refute it. So earlier this week, there was an article that came out from someone in the media who has long been an opponent. This is not the first time. This story after story after story that tried to claim that the rate of misspending, and he tried to clarify that it wasn't fraud, but the rate of misspending was 20%, which is a gargantuan number. 20% error is a huge error rate by any standard of measure. I didn't sound off right away, even though I am not just an ESA proponent, someone who I would consider myself a subject matter expert, and I care deeply about this issue, and I've spent a good chunk of my career working on it. Why? Because unlike him, as we'll now unpack, and others that are quick to just respond, I wanted to make sure, do we have our facts straight? Where did he get this from? I don't want to just reflexively say it's wrong. I figured it was wrong, but we wanted to dig in. Well, thankfully, yesterday, there was an article that came out in AZ Free News from two experts as well, Jason Bedrick and Matt Ladner. And what
both who have been on this show. I like them very much. Yeah.
What they discovered is this, that the data that he was analyzing was just data of those transactions that the Department of Education were deemed risky. So he didn't get all the transactions. He got a subset of them, which was 20%. And then of that 20%, only 20% were deemed as risky, were deemed as unallowable. Not fraud. Unallowable could be
so 1/5 of the 20%.
1/5 of 20%, which is 4%
right.
of transactions. And if you then calculate it with spending, because not all of about half of the money spent on empowerment scholarship accounts go to private schools, which would never have been in this data, the maximum potential unallowable dollars attempted to be spent would have been 2%, if not less. And we don't know yet, because we don't have the transaction level data, what percentage of that was actually fraud, like actually people buying diamond rings and lingerie and things that are clearly fraud, or what was a parent innocently attempting to buy something and then having to give the money back to the department. And so why I'm bringing this up is, one, it is unconscionable that he would put something like that out, that his media organization would let him put something like that out, because as you and I both know, retracting something like that is so much harder than getting it out there to begin with, because now this 20% is burned in people's minds, and it was, at best, he was negligent in his duties as a reporter, and at worst, he did it on purpose to try to get us to call his bluff. And either way, you know who this harms? This harms the 101,800 children that are on this program whose parents rely on it, and that the opponents of this program use this shoddy reporting at best to try to attack the ESA program, and we have to call him out. And I appreciate, Seth, that you've always been willing and able to speak out about this because we need more of this. Nobody's covering it. AZ Free News did an article. Nobody's picked it up. But, this reporter's been eerily quiet the last couple of days because I think he knows that he either made a huge mistake or had been caught in this lie.
You're putting your finger on something, obviously hugely important in the specificity of the ESA program, which is a hugely important program. It's, of course, dealing with some of the most important things a society can deal with, the education of our children, and ways to improve it, which God knows people have been pulling their hair out for decades trying to figure out. This is certainly one of the more successful programs. But at the more wholesale level, George, the problem of relying on media narratives about important things, or anything for that matter. I get calls every once in a while, Seth, how do we know what's true anymore? Because there are so many examples of what you said.
Yeah.
And I think the first task is this. I talk about, my buddy Hugh Hallman and I talk often about something called Gell-Mann amnesia. It's a Michael Crichton phrase. When you read a story in the news, let's say in the newspaper, about something you happen to know about, just because you might be a subject matter expert, as you would be in this case, or maybe it's about someone you know really well, maybe it's about you, and you see that the story is just wrong. They just got it wrong. It's just not true. But then you flip a few pages, and then you're reading another story about, I don't know, Taiwan or Germany or Japan or tax legislation, and you forget that if they can get that thing wrong, why do you rely on this to be right? And the media has become, I think I know the reporter you're speaking of, he's a little more seasoned than others, but the media right now is staffed in large part, maybe not in this one instance, but in large part by people that don't know very much. They just don't know very much. And I am imploring the audience all the time, on any story of concern to them, they have to do their own research. They have to do their own work. If you only get your news from, say, the Arizona Republic or CNN or the New York Times, I'm sorry to say this, but I mean it to my core. You will be uninformed.
The worst part of this is that this reporter is seasoned.
Yeah, I think I know who you mean.
This reporter should know better. And look, and I should have clarified, and I should clarify, any amount of when we actually discover what the percentage of fraud was.
Yeah.
Any amount of fraud is wrong and should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, and that money is paid back. And this program has fail-safes to allow us to be able to do that. And the department has very clearly articulated how much money they have recovered from both non-allowable purchases or attempts and fraudulent purposes. But because this is about politics, because there is a ballot measure, which I am also gladly opposing in trying to dismantle the program, what else do we then think other than to believe that he did this on purpose to give them a narrative talking point so they could try to beat us at the ballot box? That's the part that makes it even worse, Seth. And there are a lot of people that don't have the time or capacity to research.
Yeah. Well, that's why it's important for you to be here. It's why it's important for you to have an even bigger megaphone by being in the state legislature. And for people to, if they do have the capacity, just make sure and do your own research. All right. We have to go to a break. I want to talk to you about an interesting thing you did last Friday. You weren't with me because I was out, but you did something more interesting. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Seth Leibsohn Show. George Khalaf is my guest. He's with the Resolute Group and Data Orbital as a pollster and a political consultant, but he's also a practitioner and running for state legislation, the state legislature, Arizona House of Representatives in LD3. Which is by and large, just to do it again, it's basically large swaths of Scottsdale and moving north, right?
Yeah, Fountain Hills, Scottsdale, Carefree, Cave Creek, Rio Verde, Anthem.
Did I tell you about my trip to Cave Creek with David and the team to the Focus on the Family stuff? Did we do it?
The last time we were together, you were about to go to that the following weekend.
Fabulous. If you haven't been, I would highly recommend it. It would be in your district.
Yeah.
And so Focus on the Family has done, I think this is, David, is this their fifth? I think this is their fifth It's a retreat center. It's like a hotel. It's like a resort. It is all of that, actually. Dedicated to helping keep marriages that are on the brink from falling apart, keeping marriages together. And so David and I went up there to go see it. We talked to Jim Daly, who was there. We talked to one of my favorite potential colleagues of yours who was there, Nick Cooper. Cupper. It's a really moving thing what they're doing there. You don't think of these kinds of retreats, but it's a 4-day retreat for people whose marriages are about to fall apart, and they don't. Yeah, they have an 80% success rate.
I've heard amazing things. We have a couple that's close to Brianna and I that actually are one of the sort of couples involved. Mm-hmm. They don't provide the counseling or anything, but they're kind of like a host couple, and they will be there for 5-day stretches at a time for this, and they cannot say enough. And grateful that there are people like them willing to volunteer, but that Focus is willing to actually put these things on for couples.
I love organizations like Focus on the Family. I mean, I think there are handfuls, to be sure, of great organizations that do great work, but aren't always continually in the news. And this one isn't always continually in the news. It used to be a little bit more so, maybe in the 90s, maybe in the 80s.
Yeah.
But they just quietly go about trying to keep the forces of composition in society together up and against the forces of decomposition. And I, like you, think marriage and family are tremendously important forces of composition. I worry about low marriage rates. Certainly Focus on the Family worries about that, but this is about keeping the marriage that already exists from falling apart.
Yeah, of course, and using sort of biblical truth in that. And look, folks don't really even understand the fullest extent. I didn't until early career, and I wouldn't, I should say, except for early career. I had the opportunity to work alongside organizations that are what we call in the Focus family. And the vision that Dr. Dobson had in the 90s when it was a larger organization, but he spun off a number of organizations that have had tremendous impact on social conservatism, including one that I've worked very closely with here in the Valley.
I know the one you mean.
And just very grateful for the leadership and the vision that he had, and now the leadership that Jim Daly has, and everything that they still do, no matter how large or small. And I've had the opportunity to be at their headquarters in Colorado Springs, but I've never been up to those retreat centers.
It's brand new, so they just opened. It was a ribbon cutting a couple weekends ago. But I would urge you to go up, maybe do even a talk there or something. Even if they'd have you, they will delight in having you as an ally in the legislature representing the area in which they exist, because you are an ally to what they do and to what you and I think an awful lot about. When you get to the legislature, that's what I want you to work on. We'll get to your last Friday thing in the next segment. But I want you to work on the things no one knows how to do. Literally, we don't know how to do this. But I want you to work on getting young people interested in marriage. I want you to work on getting more people to go to church. I want you to work on preventing divorce. I want you to work on forces of composition. Daniel Patrick Moynihan, the great statesman and senator, was passionate about welfare and issue of fatherlessness. And in his last interview at the end of a very long career, he said, I've been working on this stuff for 50 years. I still don't know how to fix it. I want you to go in there and fix it, George.
I actually have a very specific thought about this on the other side.
You want to do it?
On the break, yeah. Okay. Yeah, let's do it. And then we can get into last
You're
Friday.
Already on the case. George Khalaf is my guest. KHALAF, GeorgeKhalaf.com. AZ House of Representatives, Legislative District 3, if I could talk. We'll be right back. Coming to you from the YRefi.com studios, it's a delight to have George Khalaf in studio with us. He's running for State House of Representatives in LD3, Legislative District 3. And I want him to go there and do the most important things, which a lot of people think are impossible to do. And I don't know. I don't know.
So my thought is this. I 100%. I have been and will continue. And actually, I've been ramping this up and thinking through things of how I can have a greater platform. I do want to use my voice and my personal experiences and stories, which I'm obviously not going to get into now. But I think the best way that we learn as people is by hearing other people's examples and stories and using faith and talking in those terms. That's what Charlie started doing more and more and more of closer to the end of his life. And I not just commit to doing that. There's nothing that – very few things. Every time I say something that intensely to Brianna, she's like, George, like 5 minutes ago you told me there's nothing that gets you more excited. Everything's apparently getting me excited now. But there's very few things that get me more motivated than speaking, especially to other young men as a man, other men, but young married couples, and using my story in that. And I think in the due time and in the right time, that will be used. But there is policy making. But part of it is to get out of the way of young men and women who desire to be married. Part of it is to lead by example and speak about conservatism differently, because one of the pressure points on marriage is that young women are like 30 points overwhelmingly progressive and young men are like 30 points overwhelmingly conservative. And one of the biggest markers of divorce is not misaligned faith and misaligned money and whatever. It's misaligned politics, especially in today's environment. So that's an actual realistic factor. But there is some good policy that we can do around divorce. There is some good policy that we can do around family formation and how people can come together. I've been working on a project that we call the Thinkability Project, which is how do we make parenthood more thinkable? How can men and women actually come together and desire to have children? How do women feel like they're supported in becoming mothers, right? Especially to uncouple and to change this conversation about the life issue. So there is a lot to do there, but I'm not going to pretend like, obviously, that I know. Not only do I not know everything, but also government's role in this is very particular, and we have to be very careful in it. There's a tremendous amount of cultural things that have to happen, but we need leaders, whether political or otherwise, to speak up. And I am so grateful. Thank God that we do have more of that now. Yeah. But it's still not anywhere near to the extent that we need.
Yeah, and in some of these areas, it's about stopping bad things more than
exactly.
Bill Bennett used to tell me a good piece of advice he got once when he got a career in Washington was someone said to him, "Don't just do something, stand there." Don't just do something, stand there. It's good advice sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't stand last Friday, but you sat, you rode along. Tell us about this ride-along you did. This is really interesting.
Another one of the things that I'm really loving about the campaign is that I get to do things. It gives me, I don't want to say an excuse, but it gives me a reason and a willingness on the end of the other person to allow me to participate in things. And one of them is that I am leaning in with our men and women in blue, law enforcement. Of course, I want to earn their support for my campaign, but it's by first and foremost showing them that I stand with them and that I'll be an advocate for them. So one of the ways is I wanted to put myself in their shoes. I'd never been on a ride-along with a cop, and I wanted to do that. And I had the opportunity, grateful. I got introduced to Chief Leduc from Scottsdale PD as a Scottsdale resident and as a candidate for office that would represent a good swath of Scottsdale. We have an amazing department. I'll just tell you to jump to the conclusion. Amazing department. I mean, he had a rank and file, and it's not like he knew how I got to him or anything, but this officer, 4 years on the force, just could not speak highly enough of the lieutenants, the sergeants, the chief, the council and mayor and their support of law enforcement. So one, I was super proud in that. I learned so much. And nothing crazy happened. They call that the curse of the ride-along. Apparently, like the day before or after a ride-along happens, usually that officer has some big thing that occurs. Yeah. But then on the night of the ride-along, nothing really crazy happened. But I was able to learn from him, kind of get in his brain in terms of how he does it, and understand, like, man, we feel safe in Scottsdale because we are safe in Scottsdale. Because one, our police force is staffed. We have tons of cops that overlap in different shifts without getting too nerdy. They have the equipment that they need. They have the training and the leadership from their supervisors. They have policies in place that protect officers when it comes to like getaways and different things like that. And that we have folks that are actively looking for bad things and doing it in a way that's safe and appropriate, especially with everything that's happened. I asked him point blank, I said, are you feeling a lot of this anti-cop sentiment? He said, candidly, in Scottsdale, not as much. You do get it here and there. And obviously every officer's perspective is different. But I was just so proud of what I saw and just grateful to have, and I've had multiple conversations with leaders in different police associations from around the valley and the state, and sincerely amazed at the work that they do. We if you do a thought experiment, what would it be like for 30 days without a cop or without police? We can imagine what would happen with the depravity of man.
Yeah, I mean, I was just thinking about that sort of when you said it was a boring night, so to speak. Uneventful might be the better word. That's the best day for a cop.
And we were in the potentially most eventful part of Scottsdale. Okay. So it's not like we were in the far north where it's just multi-million-dollar homes. It really was a great experience, and I want to continue to lean in. And I just, again, I'm loving learning more about what's happening in the district. And I'm hoping and I'm attempting to do a ride along with the sheriff's department in Cave Creek on a Friday night. Okay. And I was told to do it when there's a full moon. Because apparently people get more intense the night of a full moon. So we'll see how that goes.
I'm sitting on the cusp of asking whether I can go or whether I should just.
Maybe you should be hanging out in Cave Creek.
Yeah, let's not complete the thought here. What could happen?
But sincerely, it's really good. And I would also urge folks that have questions, right? Because people may have questions. Well, are police doing this or that, or not? Are they managing our privacy well, or are they using too much force? Learn about what your local police department's doing, because you hear horror stories on the media, like from what we've just talked about in the prior hour. But bring it local. Hear what's happening, because man, a lot of our Arizona police forces and what's happening here, it's just not the case. They don't desire to get into an altercation, and that was made abundantly clear, but they want to keep bad guys and girls off the streets. And sometimes, unfortunately, you do have to use force appropriately.
I haven't said it enough lately, but whenever I see a cop or on my afternoon or morning or evening jogs, I'm near one of their precincts, I always say thank you. And I'm amazed at the sincerity of their appreciation for that. It's important for people to say thank you. If you're not sure whether to or not, do it. Just do it. Say thank you. That's one thing. The other thing that you made me think of when you said that it was an uneventful night in a typically eventful kind of place, and speaking of the presence of all the police in Scottsdale, that's an important thing, too, to keep things being uneventful. The police presence.
Of
just
course.
their very
Deterrence.
presence. Yes.
Deterrence.
Right. The deterrent effect of knowing that you have cops around. Which is one of the things I hate about the left-wing megaphone on policing matters, where they will talk about how the community, particularly urban and minority communities, are so angry at the police, because it's not true. In the polling that I've seen and in the conversations I used to have in those communities, they want nothing more than safety.
Of course.
And they want the police. It's the loudmouths and the agitators who don't. The people who live there want them because they have to suffer the consequences of that 30-day experiment. We'll be right back. I want to thank George Khalaf for being with us. He is a candidate in Legislative District 3. Whenever I give speeches in LDs, George, they're often not my LD, which is LD 4, which is a competitive legislative district. And it's got some of the finest public servants in Karen Warner and Pam Carter and Matt Gress. I just think they're model people. So what I'd like to tell them in these other LDs that I do tend to speak of is, don't take any races for granted. And even if you're in a solid district, even if you are in a district that's not up for grabs, take a look at a district like mine and help people like Karen Warner out, because these races are not assured. And pound for pound, you're going to find it very hard to find people of such quality as we have in LD4. I'd hate to see them not win. I want to put in a word for Karen in that team?
I've known Karen for a long time, from helped her get elected to the school board alongside
That's when
Amy
I met
Carney.
her. Yeah.
I was proud to do so, proud to support her in her run for the state Senate district that I had followed, known well. And
I forgot you were involved in that race.
And so now as a candidate, in a couple of weeks I've got an event with her. And the reason why I desire to do those types of things, even though you're sharing the spotlight with someone else, but because frankly she needs the spotlight more than I do. Not that I'm taking anything for granted, but my race is the primary, not the general. But Karen's been down there only for a handful of years, right? It's not a long time. And the amount of things that she's done. First off, she's the chair of the health committee, which is very rare.
Vice chair of education
for a freshman. But more importantly, she is uncovering and has leaned in on this crazy amount of fraud that's happened in the state that literally no one's covered.
Almost $3 billion, I think.
It's at $3 billion, about 30% of which is just went and disappeared to Pakistan, just unrecoverable, and who knows how much of it is in the same boat, and yet had been met with silence, and she needed to persist, and now is standing up and defending and working with surgeons who are facing just immense sort of radiological issues, but she puts in the hard work. And so not only do we need to support her, we needed to support her joyfully, and I am doing that, and will put my money where my mouth is, so to speak. That's going to be my number one job after the primaries, to help our swing district folks get across the line. But that is an important thing, and there's going to be millions of dollars spent against her. That will be the most expensive race to try to take her out, because she has been a good, amazing vote in a district that is very difficult. Thankfully, a district that's gotten more Republican. We need to unpack a lot of those dynamics, as we get closer, of course, to the primary and the general. But grateful for leaders like Karen Warner in the state Senate.
They only tackle the person with the football, and she's got the football, man. She really does. I'm glad we could put in a word for her in our district here, too. George Khalaf has been my guest. GeorgeKhalaf.com. Do help him out as well. This could be a great legislature with people like Karen and people like George in it. It could be the kind of legislature that Arizonans used to remember and be very, 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 very proud of. It's got some great leadership now. We're here to make it better. It's like BASF. We don't make things, we make the things that exist better. We'll be right back.
Once upon a time, there was an SUV where everything for every passenger feels just right. Not too loud or too quiet. Introducing the all-new 3-row Infiniti QX80 with individual audio zones that isolates phone calls to the driver's seat.
Get $9,000 bonus cash or 0% APR for 36 months on select 2026 Infiniti QX80 trims at Bomarito Infiniti. Offer cannot be combined with other offers. Contact retailer for details. Ends March 2nd, 2026.